Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Chamber of the Wraith. My name is Brian, and today we're going to be tackling Godzilla Save the Earth once again, where we finally have a name for this little series, barring any technical difficulties that I have to deal with. Monster Breakdown. That's what it was. Can you tell that these are unscripted? Anyways, the whole point of this is to break down monster combat prowess and capabilities, and eventually compare some of their quirks to whatever other kooky, weird video games exist out there. And as always, we're going to start with the very first monster you'll probably ever touch. The monster that is the protagonist of this game, Godzilla 2000, also known as the Millennium version of Godzilla. This Godzilla and Godzilla 90s are the very basic monsters. They are the only ones that don't have some kind of L2-R2 capabilities or special moves. These are the basic guys that most monsters will start with. So in a sense, they at the surface appear to be the most limited, but these guys prove that they are powerful beasts. The only difference between Godzilla 90s and 2000 is that Godzilla 2000 is slightly faster, while Godzilla 90s has slightly more powerful weapons, at least from the stat screen. But, as you will see, both of these monsters have very distinct attack options. So, we're going to be doing these monsters in individual episodes, starting with Godzilla 2000 as our base. We'll be taking a look at attacks and all sorts of general things. We'll be starting on easy, because that way it functions as close to a training mode as I could get in this game. And we are going to actually be going not to the boxing ring, but to one of the major cities, because this way we can actually collect power-ups and I can show off the rage attack. But New York is going to be our first stop, thanks to Central Park. Now, before we get into anything specific for Godzilla 2000, I need to talk about,
Godzilla 2000.
Well, a universal mechanic that I missed.
Godzilla 90. Monsters.
That universal mechanic is attack canceling. Note how slow that this attack, and this attack tend to be. In most fighting game situations, attacks that are that slow can be seriously troublesome. But what does this mean for block canceling? Well, you could go for one of these and go into a block. Generally speaking, by the time a noise is made, that is, of the monster, that is when your block window is over. So if you listen very closely, listen to the overhead and the uppercut option. Once you stop breathing on me. Do you hear those sounds before Godzilla 2000 actually launches the attack? That's your window. So you can fake it overhead and then try and go for an uppercut if it's at closer range. You can even do this for your jabs, but you have to hold the block for a little bit, meaning you have to give up your offense to do this technique. Now let's talk basic attacks. Godzilla 2000's basic attacks are nothing to write home about. His punch combo is a double jab into bite, which is his up kick. This is a fairly quick attack that can interrupt most attacks and allow Godzilla 2000 to squeeze some damage before certain attacks kick in. His forward punch, which we are focusing mostly on punches for now, is this lunge. The big deal for this is it's a great Oki tool. You use this to come in from downtown on a downed opponent, like so, and potentially get some extra damage in. But you do risk eating a wake-up attack in the process. There's also this attack, this overhead slam, which is up and punch. This attack seems to be one of the most frequent causes of the pseudo-armor that Godzilla Save the Earth kind of has, but I've not noticed it often enough to trigger it reliably. Worth noting, too, is that you can actually tell if an attack is a sharp or a blunt attack. Something I forgot to actually mention in the stats department Godzilla 2000's attacks are sharp and blunt for both of his melee attacks, and his ranged attacks are radioactive, breath, and a fire-type fireball. Definitely worth keeping an eye on. Down and punch is the uppercut that you've seen me use a lot, which can launch opponents and knock them down. And then, Godzilla 2000 has this double swipe when you press back and punch. It doesn't seem to do too much, but it is decent damage. But it has a pretty cool gimmick when you hold the button down.
You win. Monsters, fight!
When you hold the button down, you go for a third one. A strong swipe that can launch opponents, especially if they've been pinned against walls or buildings. But as you can see, there is a gap where you can block. But you can fake them out just by not going for it. And you can even, if the opponent is good at listening in and you've got great timing, fake out by holding then releasing the button, and thus force the opponent to block, but then they give up their turn. Next up are the kick attacks. By pressing kick, kick, you will just normally kick. These aren't going to be normally useful, but you can use them to stagger the opponent into the overhead swipe unless the opponent is feeling particularly cheeky and decides to try and interrupt you with an attack. Forward and kick is this rushing headbutt, which is a blunt attack. You can tell a blunt attack from a sharp attack by watching the impact sparks. For instance, watch this versus this. Those gray circles are blunt, like what the headbutt inflicts, and the big yellow sparks are for sharp attacks. There's also usually an audio cue based off of the monster's skin type. So these organic skin tissues sound in this certain fashion, whereas metal or chitinous monsters like Kiryu and Megalon will be different sounding. But you can always tell based off of the hit sparks. Next we have the double drop kick, which, as you can see, also is a criminal for having this kind of armor. It's slow, but it can definitely knock down, as you can see there. As mentioned before, up and kick is this bite attack, which is nice and fast for interruptions. Then there's the Stomp Attack, which is slow as hell, but does okay blunt damage. Sometimes, if positioned just right, this would actually stagger the opponent by, well, stepping on their toes. But it's kind of tricky to see in this game, so we're not going to mention it too much until we get to a certain monster that capitalizes on this. Finally, there's Fierce, which is a simple tail swipe, and it immediately goes into one of the alternate attacks, the reverse tail swipe, which is back Fierce. This turns Godzilla 2000 around and can lead to his backwards facing attack, which is the double tail strike. This will strike the opponent mid and then slam them overhead in order to cause big damage. By pressing down and Fierce, you get a tail sweep, which knocks the opponent down and flying. There's a tail uppercut, which functions similarly to the normal uppercut, but is slightly faster. And since we just crushed Godzilla 90s, we're going on to the third round.
You win. Monsters, fight!
Since I was not anticipating that it would actually go quite that long. Up and Fierce is this massive tail swipe, which cannot, despite its animation, be block canceled. So you need to be careful here. The back tail swipe also cannot be block canceled, as well as the double swipe, the bite, and most of your basic attacks. So most of Godzilla 2000's attacks can be block canceled if you want to go for it. But the weakest one of these that cannot is up in Fierce, so be careful when going for this attack. Fearsome Punch is the overhead strike, like kick, kick, punch. And then Fearsome Kick is the tail swipe into a stomp. Kick and Fierce will lead to the tail swipe, will lead to the big tail uppercut. Running and pushing punch buttons will yield a strong version of the jab attack across most of the monsters. And if you hold the crouch button down, sometimes you'll get the launching strike, but 9 times out of 10 it'll just be the punch. So be mindful of what your monster does on the rampage when he can run in and attack. Next, let's take a look at jump attacks. Jumping Punch is this double sharp overhead. It doesn't knock down, but it's great for Oki. Knock a monster down, jump and punish his wake up directly. He also has this Jumping Kick, which can hit on the way up and on the way down. So this is a bit of a tricky attack. Then we have the Jumping Fierce attack, which is a big tail swipe. Take note that if an opponent gets behind you and while you're jumping, most attacks will try and autocorrect. Sometimes, like with the tail swipe, it can be great. Other times, like with the Jumping Kick, it is not optimal at all. And finally, let's talk throws. The punch throw is always a basic throw like this. Nothing to write home about. The kick throw, as I like to call it, or the moderate throw, is this big launching volleyball spike, which can knock the opponent down and even combo. You can grab the opponent, launch them with this, and then go for a fairly quick attack, like the headbutt, and voila, comboed and knocked down.
Godzilla 2001. You win.
The final base attack that we need to talk about is the Fierce Throw, which is kind of a very funny-looking throw. You generally can't combo into the throw unless you count the Oki attack as a combo, but it's pretty good, but all of these throws have their own options. This attack, the basic throw is the basic fast throw with good horizontal range. The punch throw has great vertical range and can allow for combos to knock monsters back that might like to be closer to you than Godzilla 2000 might be comfortable with. And if you need, for some reason, to put the opponent away from a power-up next to you, the tail throw is perfect for that, giving you time to run and gun. Now we're going to look for a rage power-up so I can talk about Godzilla 2000 super move, or rage attack, but don't expect it to be right away. It might take a little while for me to find one, because they spawn randomly from UFOs, which is probably part of the reason why all power-ups would be banned in the competitive setting of Godzilla if you ever somehow got a competitive scene. Also, this is another reason why there's no way that a city map would ever be competitively viable. I mean, look at this. I could just yeet Godzilla 90s over here, run away, and just keep running for the duration of the fight. To have this life lead, if your monster's speed is basically matched, or one is slightly faster than the other, like Godzilla 2000 to Godzilla 90s, I have life lead. I win, effectively. So, but look at the pushback that you can get from a ranged attack. It's a little distressing. Not to mention if you get if a beam fight decides to show up, that's where things can get messy.
Godzilla 2001. You win.
So I managed to win by timeout before I was able to find a frickin' rage power-up. Let's keep looking.
Fight.
Oh, that was cool. A well-timed uppercut can slip under the reversal tail, but you have to time it. That's a health power-up. What is with these guys and not giving me rage... And not giving me rage attacks? No. Oh. An interesting mechanic in Godzilla Save the Earth, by the way. And I'm sorry that I have to talk about another mechanic, but... I've been trying for literally the last 5 minutes to try and get a rage power-up, and for some weird reason, our alien friends are refusing to drop one. So, let's talk about directed targeting. If you release a beam attack and hold the crouch/run button, you can aim at any military vehicles that are nearby. Things like helicopters and tanks. And you will always hit them. But you can use it to fake out an opponent if the helicopter's close enough by charging all the way, hitting a helicopter. Oh. Thank you. Oh, god damn it. You know what? I'm going to switch arenas and try and make it a little easier. You can tell that it's been a long recording session where I've not been able to get the thing I've been looking for. When I've switched arenas in a bid to try and find what I'm looking for. That thing I'm looking for, by the way, is a rage power-up. I apologize that it's been taking so damn long, but apparently these things are rarer than a shiny Pokemon. So, which is weird because they usually spawn at about the same rate that every other power-up does. So I don't understand why they were being particularly stingy in New York. Maybe it's because we're on easy? I don't know. I just caught that rock, and I could catch any small buildings that are thrown at me as any monster by pressing the grab button right as the building is about to hit me square in the jaw. So, something to keep an eye out for. And speaking of keeping an eye out for, I need to keep an eye out for UFOs.
Many minutes later.
There it is! Rage! Yeah! That took entirely too long! Okay. Godzilla 2000's Rage Attack is the Nuclear Pulse, a powerful nuclear-type attack that will devastate an area around him, including any structures. It didn't look like much, but against most monsters, it does a respectable amount of damage and is great for destruction mode. Jesus Christ, we literally ran out of time at the end of the second round, or at the end of the first round.
Time. Godzilla 2001.
Before I saw a rage power-up. Let's hope that never happens again. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is Godzilla 2000. Which, hopefully, you get a pretty basic idea of, he's just a basic monster at the end of the day. Nothing too crazy, nothing insane to write home about. And next time, we're going to take a look at his naughty's cousin, Godzilla 90s. Don't forget to be awesome, my friends, and I'll see you guys on the other side.